and Riana Show. I am Rihanna Manuel Pena, Danny Pena's wife, and I'm introducing this episode solo. And don't worry, Danny's just fine. He's in the other room with our baby Violet. But one thing that we've always talked about doing with this channel and with the Danny Riana Show is bringing in people in our lives that could potentially help educate our audience and even us on, things we're curious about and things we want to talk about. So, with that in mind, I wanted to take the opportunity to answer a question that we get pretty often. One of the first things people ask us when they hear that we work in video games is, how do I do that? A lot of times when we're on panels or interacting with audience members or people in the industry, people who want to be in the industry, the thing that they always ask is, how do I get a job in working in games? So, in order to help me answer that question, I was given the fantastic opportunity to go to Heart Machine, which is a game development studio out here in Southern California, and interview a good friend of ours, Miss Dani Wallace. So, Dani is a game developer, and she has been for quite some time now. She's very talented, and you'll hear a lot more about her projects in our interview coming up in just a few minutes here. Dani took a very straightforward path into video games. She is a Microsoft Xbox Women in Gaming Game Changer Scholarship recipient. As I said, has been working as a game developer for several years now and is a scholarship manager at Game Devs of Color Expo. She's also currently a 3D environmental artist at the company I said, Heart Machine, and has some very fantastic insights for people who want to take maybe a more traditional route into getting into video games. Now, how did we get here? Well, you've heard my story here and there. You've definitely heard Dani's story if you've been following us for any amount of time. But my path was very sideways. I originally went to school and intended to go into healthcare, like a majority of my family has. Eventually, made my way into the Xbox team and further down the marketing rabbit hole through a couple of different companies and landed here as an independent business owner who consults in video game branding and marketing and does a little content on the side. That is not the path most people take. So if following the story of Dani creating everything on his own or me, coming in from sort of a side door doesn't resonate with you, we thought that Dani's story might be another perspective that could be helpful to some people out there. So without any further ado, I will kick it over to our interview at Heart Machine with Dani Wallace to talk about how she's gotten into game dev and has navigated her career. So I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so for this segment of the Danny and Riana Show, I am going to be having a really exciting conversation with a very important person in the gaming industry, my friend, Danny.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So Danny, introduce yourself, let the people know what you do and why we're here.
Yeah, I'm Danielle Wallace. I'm a 3D environment artist at Heart Machine. I've been at Heart Machine now for 3 years. 3 years and some change. Doesn't feel like it, but.
And for those who don't know, Heart Machine is the incredible studio behind Hyperlight Drifter and Hyperlight Breaker.
And upcoming Possessors.
Yeah, which you can talk about now.
Yes, finally.
We have cleared that.
Let's check the time.
Yeah. So I, of course, am very excited to play the games that you're working on, but even more excited to learn more about you and your path into game dev. And I know you went to school for game development, which is somewhat rare for a lot of people who come up through like QA or tests. Yeah. But talk a little bit about how you went from going into the educational space and then moving into the career.
Yeah, so I actually went to school at George Mason University. Was there for 3 years. Majored in computer game design. We kind of covered like a little bit of everything. It was one of those programs where you learned a bit of every profession, environment art, character art, programming, audio, etc., which is like insane. Like 4 years of learning everything, which I kind of also enjoy because I got to learn about all professions and like appreciate each profession. Like, oh, how are you getting XYZ to contribute to each project and the tech behind everything, which is really cool too. Um, in regards to my journey, yeah, I was there for 3 years, and then I didn't really have the everyone has like that year after they graduate of like, oh, to take a break off and focus on what XYZ. I just worked probably too hard, if I'm being honest, worked more than I should have. And I actually got a job in the industry right before graduating. The quarter before, I was at a startup called Sky Farm. They were working on a children's show as well as a mobile game at the same time. Then from there, went to Numinous Games and was there for a year. They made that Dragon Cancer.
Fantastic game. You should check it
Yeah,
out.
it's a gorgeous
Heavy
game.
feels.
Yeah, I didn't work on that one, but I was working on the thing after. Fantastic studio. Then after that, what year was that? That was 2021. Feels forever ago now.
It does.
Yeah. I started at Heart Machine, and it's been a fantastic experience since then. And it felt surreal, like at the beginning of them hiring me. I actually had a lot of creative freedom at the studio to be like, oh, how is X, Y, or Z in regard to foliage, art style, etc. Being able to pitch, oh, I think we should do X, Y, Z different, etc. And like have that conversation at the beginning of the project. Be like, yeah, let's do this different or that different, which felt surreal because I was still very early in the industry at that point. But it feels really good to have studios be able to have conversation, not just like do this and like that's it. But it depends on per studio as well. But it feels really good that they like trusted me with that. So
That's incredible. And honestly, I love hearing that you felt empowered to give your expertise. But I'm curious, like you said, you had all of the different disciplines presented during your education. But what is it that really helped you make the choice of where you wanted to specialize?
Oh, that one's a really fun one. In my junior year of college, we were making a Katamari Damacy clone, actually. If you guys, for context, it's a game where you like you're the little prince. You're rolling up the world, essentially, getting little pieces to kind of like a puzzly, like open world game. And we made a clone of that where you're a jelly going around the world, just sculpting up objects. And per a lot of how colleges work and like programs, etc. Like one of the people in the project just like went off and was like, "Oh, I don't care. The only other environment artist." So I had to make 100 assets in a month.
Wow.
And I was like, "All right, I just got to do it." And I think it was up when I realized I really wanted to make props. I was like, I love making the environment, like all of the little pieces that make the game what it is, and gets the emotional feel of whatever you're creating, which is really, really, really fun. But
That's awesome. That's great that that didn't turn you off of it by making you sick.
Yeah, I'm tired of all of you.
That's so fun. So, what are some other things that you find inspiration from when you're creating environments, creating assets for a game?
Yeah, I actually wanted to. One of the things that got me into games was I grew up playing like the Spyro games, Sly Cooper series, etc.
Love those mascots.
Yeah, so good. But they had to do so much with so little because like those were like PS1 era games and then PS2 for the Sly Cooper games, and just finding inspiration for like how you achieve what you want to achieve for either the tone or theme of a project or emotional feel based on how little you have or the technical limitations you are working with for each project. Um, so I guess that's like a long-winded answer of like those games super inspired me, and I built from those and was like, how did they get the feel they wanted for each thing, especially in regard to like lighting, etc. Because when I first actually went into games, I was like, oh, I actually did want to learn each profession, and I actually learned programming because I was like, I want to make little games on my phone and like see how that works and the whole process and stuff. Like what goes into making a game, not just building an asset and then handing it off to the studio or putting it in there. Like that's it.
Yeah. So wait, how did you do that? Like what tools did you use?
So in college, we very heavily used Unity. We did also learn Unreal, um, and we were actually working on Unreal Engine 4 for Hyperlight Breaker. Um, but in college, since Unity was like what we used a little bit more, and also I really enjoyed coding in C Sharp. It seemed a little bit more I don't know about straightforward. I just understood it better than like C++ or etc. Um, so I actually had a class where it was kind of straightforward. It was like, do this code and then it works. And it wasn't really, the professor wasn't really explaining like that particular class of like, oh, here's why this line of code is doing what it is, as opposed to just like, here's the line of code. But that inspired me to be like, no, I want to actually learn the intricacies behind each thing and like why is this working. And then that led into also, I think probably also wanting to be an environment art, because like I feel like if I wasn't an environment artist I would be tech art, because I love art and programming as well.
Where the two meet together.
Yeah, where the two meet together over there. But yeah, I would just make just small like side scroller or like jump and collect things on my phone. And I have like a couple on there, but they're just like they're just like small things. They're so old now, they're not good. They're not good. Like, can we see? They're not that great. I do actually have a couple on itch.io for people to look that up later. Deep Hand Heart, itch.io. I have like the first couple games we made in college or just things I made on my own.
Okay, we'll get a link in the description.
Yeah. Those are old though. Don't judge me for that. They're cute though, but yeah.
That's so much fun. So what are some other things that were interesting to you as you were figuring out what you wanted to go to school for, figuring out what your career path would be? Because I mean, obviously you have many different interests, it sounds like, but did you play with any other majors or other options?
When I think I kind of always knew I wanted to go into games. For a little bit of lore, actually. My mom was actually in the animation industry.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. She was a huge inspiration to me. I have two nerd parents, and my dad wanted to be a comic book artist, so I think it was just inevitable.
It was destiny.
At that point. But she worked on the children's show, The Killer Tomatoes, if you've heard.
Yes!
Yeah!
That's so cool.
Yeah. So she it was such a weird show. Even she admits that. It's
yeah.
It was
a weird time.
Yeah. But yeah, she was just so passionate about animation, and she was like, oh, I want to go back in it, but she's like, oh, that's behind me now, blah, blah, blah. She had me, and then we all moved, so it was hard to get back in the industry at first. But I knew I wanted to, because I grew up playing like Spyro games, etc. and stuff, and I was like, if I didn't go into games, I probably would be animation because of my mom, because I appreciate that medium so much. And before I even knew I wanted to be an environment artist, I did a lot of pixel art, ironically now being at Heart Machine.
Yeah, it's very pixel.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I would actually do a lot of animations in pixel art because I wanted to learn animation as well, and I think I love that medium. And if I wasn't in games, I think I would be in animation.
Yeah, that's a good backup plan.
Yeah.
Very cool. And you speak very highly of Heart Machine and all of the studios you've been involved in, which is fantastic. Not everybody has a great experience everywhere they go. So what are some of the things that you look for in a place before you decide to sign up with them?
Yeah. When I actually was applying around before I applied here, I would like be like, hey, what is their culture like, etc. Are there women there? Is it like at least a little bit diverse? Because like then people can tell stories from each of their viewpoints and cultures and stuff, which is fantastic. Yeah. So those were like a couple of things as well. And I also wanted to find a studio that matched not matched, but could complement my art style.
How do you mean?
Or at least is in the same general ballpark. Because I knew I wanted to be a stylized artist. I was like, I could never go into realistic.
Sure.
I appreciate it so much.
Very different art form.
Yeah, it's like a lot more technical, I think, too. Though I love technical stuff, but I love being able to realize art in like a more of a stylized thing. But I actually didn't know about. I think at that point I applied, I had only just learned about Solar Ash, and I was like, oh, what's their next game going to be? I'm like, I'll apply. Sure. And one of the reasons I applied is Emily Cast. Oh, I think I'm saying her last name right. She was our previous lead animation, if I remember correctly. And she actually posted the environment artist post. It was like, hey, we're hiring for environment artists. I'm like, oh, there's women there. and she's advocating for more people to come.
Right.
So
she's not stay away.
Yeah.
Which you do hear sometimes.
So she's actually one of the reasons I applied. I don't know if I ever told her that, but yeah, yeah, I was like, oh, let me see. And I think I might have knew like one other person, I can't remember. But I just generally not I've heard like general good things about Heart Machine before, so I was like, yeah, seems like a good spot.
Well, coming to see the space, it's awesome. Like you have this fantastic building here in Culver City, and everybody seems very excited to be here. I've heard that it is show and tell day.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have like a little sneak peek of what you're going to be showing or telling.
Um.
Or what do people usually present at show and
So yeah, for context for show and tell, we actually do a bi-weekly like I can hear them clapping as well. Yeah, so it's to show off like, oh hey, what have we done the last 2 weeks from either now I can say either project.
Yeah.
To just be like, oh, what are you working on? Because otherwise, as for a lot of studios, you don't really get to see what other professions are working on. Everyone's just kind of like in their hole. So it just feels really great to like always be on a call at the end of the week, and it's like, oh, here's what I did, and it's like animation showing off their stuff, character art, environment, audio, and it's like, whoa, that's great, hyping each other up, and it's really warm and great.
No, that's awesome, and it's so important. I mean, obviously, you guys are hybrid in studio and also remote. It's tough to break down those walls of the silos for different disciplines, even if you are in the same building, which you are sometimes.
Yeah.
You really just kind of get heads
Yeah,
down and
everyone's
you
just,
don't
like,
realize what
focused.
everybody else is doing. So it's like, hey, snaps for me. I actually created 2 scenes today.
Yeah, right. Someone's like holding the game together. You just don't see them.
That's great. Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So, not to look too far ahead, but before we wrap up, I would love to hear what are some of the things that you hope to do in the future of your career.
So, I down the line, I'd love to. I had always had a dream of like, I want to start my own studio, do X, Y, Z, and I'm
Okay.
like, what?
Okay. Hey, we're manifesting.
Yeah. But I was like, as I got more into it, I was like, I don't want to do like the business side though. Like, I don't want to
Fair.
like, like I don't want to. Yeah, I was like, that's a little harder than I thought it was when I was younger. So I at least like to be like one of the heads, like an art director, like art director or something. I think that's the real goal. Like, I don't want to do the business side.
Dial it back.
Yeah, whatever's like right underneath. So I think that's the goal because I'd love to be able to have even more creative freedom in regard to telling stories, deciding how XYZ looks, the emotional impact, the theme of whatever project I'm working on, etc. Just have more of like a, hey, this is what we want to achieve to tell even more like cool, just creative stories and stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And last question, any advice you'd give to somebody who's still trying to get into games?
Those are always hard. I'm like, oh,
it's
what do I say?
It's always hard.
It is. For like 10 minutes. No, okay.
It is. And honestly, when people ask me for, the creator side or even the business side, it's like, just do it is my advice because you can't really wait for someone to hand you an opportunity these days.
That's a huge, huge one.
Yeah.
Actually kind of tangential to that. One of my big ones is just like get yourself out there.
Yeah.
People are always like, oh, you're an introvert? I don't believe you. And I'm like,
I
had to genuinely like make myself come out of my shell. Anyone who knew me before sophomore year of college are like, that was a different person.
Okay.
So especially after I moved to LA, I've actually been Heart Machine 3 years and then 2 years proper in LA in studio. And especially after moving here, I was like, no, I need to actually get myself out there, network, etc.
So important.
And like make those connections and friendships in the industry because I just got here essentially. I'm in year 5, but I'm like just got here-ish.
And part of that was shut down, which
doesn't
count.
So minus 2 years. But I just want to tell people like don't be afraid to just reach out to someone on like Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. Just be warm, be a normal person. Don't be weird. Just like ask questions about like their experience in the industry, or if GDC is about to happen or another conference, like, oh, hey, I'd love to meet up and grab like a coffee or something. Actually, 2 years ago, I like reached out to, I'm blanking on his name right now. It was like one of the heads of Brass Lion. And I was just like, and he worked on Skyrim, etc. And I obviously wanted to reach out because I was like, oh, another Black dev who's like at the top, like running a studio, which is just generally rare. So he responded like I think within like an hour or something. I was
Yeah.
like, really? That's wild. And we just like grabbed like coffee and just he said about like, oh yeah, like how it was working on Skyrim, and then like after that he was like a place in New Zealand and then traveling back to the US. And I was just like, I love reaching out to, don't feel weird to reach out.
Yes.
That's my main thing, you
Most
know.
people like talking about themselves anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, just be warm and don't be afraid to, yeah.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time.
Thank
I don't want
you
to keep
so
you
much.
from the rest of show and tell, so you can let everybody know how much amazing work you've been doing.
Thank
But
you.
I guess as the sign off, is there anything you'd want to share and promote to the people
Um,
besides your Itch.io, which we're gonna get?
um, which is hyper like break. No, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wishless Hyperlight Breaker.
What else do I want to? Follow me on Twitter. Feel free to reach out to me and ask me about industry questions as well. I also run a Discord called the Peeps Discord, which I actually do. Was initially made to help students and early devs in the industry share experiences with people who have been in the industry to just get those connections in and just have a calm, normal space to chat about that stuff and not be intimidated by like social media or social media just being on fire like how it is right now.
Very.
I think that's what I'll plug.
Right. Well, as I said before, we'll have all those links in the description. And thank you, Danny.
Thank you so much. You've been absolutely amazing. I love you so much.
Well, good luck with everything. I know you're gonna kill it.
Thank you.
All right, so that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you to the folks at Heart Machine for opening your doors and welcoming us to come and make content in your amazing space. Thank you to Dani Wallace for sharing her insights and being so open and transparent with her journey. I know it's going to help somebody out there, so we really appreciate it. And if you want to learn more about Dani's Itch.io projects or the Discord that she runs, I will put all of those links in the description to this episode. And if you have any feedback for us or want to hear about certain topics or learn about a certain type of job in the industry, let us know. We have access to a lot of fantastic people who would love to share their stories with you too. And obviously, Danny and I are always an open book. So please tell us what you want to hear from us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.